Hey friends, welcome back to the Big Talk podcast. I'm your host, Tricia Brouk, founder of the Big Talk Academy, award-winning director, producer, and author. And this is episode 593. Today, I'm bringing you into a conversation that I had with an amazing speaker and alum of the Big Talk Academy, Dena Patton. Dena is an award-winning coach and trainer who works with world-changing business owners and leaders. She's supported over 1,000 one-on-one clients who are forward-thinking, purposeful entrepreneurs and CEOs vested in their values, impact, income, and results. On global stages, Dena is known for her expertise and inspiration on the topic of mental toughness and building a positive mindset based on her book, The Greatness Game. She's garnered 9 business awards and over 90 media stories, including CNN, Entrepreneur Magazine, First Women, NBC, and Business Journal. Outside of her business ventures, Dena devotes herself to philanthropic work. She is the co-founder of the Girls Rule Foundation, which champions empowerment and leadership programs for teen girls. This is an amazing conversation, one I'm super honored to have had, and I so appreciate all of you tuning in to listen to Dena's inspirational story. Dena, I am so excited to welcome you as a featured guest on the Big Talk podcast. How are you today?
I am so great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. We have so much to cover today and all the things that you do to serve. I want to start, however, with your backstory. I want you to take us back as far back as you feel comfortable in terms of you finding your voice and what led you to this moment with us today.
So, gosh, that's such a big story, but I can compress it down to a very quick, probably minute or so. And I would say, I don't even think you know this about me, but I've had to learn how to speak twice in my life, in addition to us as babies, right? So,
Wait, I need to pause for the listeners. I did not know that about you. And for everyone who's listening and watching, Dena is a certified Big Talk Academy graduate. She's an alum from our program. And I would never have known that based on how you show up in community and how you are such a masterful communicator. So take us to this moment.
yeah, it's been a journey in finding my voice, using my voice, and standing for my voice. So the two tragic things. In seventh grade, I actually had an accident and bit off my tongue. They had to sew it back on.
Oh my
Very unique little
gosh.
situation there. But here's a fun fact: one of the fastest healing muscles in your body. So I literally couldn't eat or drink for 2 weeks. I was like sipping smoothies for 2 weeks as my jaw was wired shut. But after that, really had to relearn how to speak. But fast forward, I moved
Wait,
my
before you fast forward, because this
yeah,
is very delicate.
yes,
This is massive trauma.
yes,
You were in the 7th grade, which meant you were what, 10?
12. Mm-hmm,
Okay, 12. So even more challenging because you're
mm-hmm,
preteen.
yes.
How did you manage to, and this is why you teach mindset, I'm sure, one of the many reasons. How did you manage to navigate a 12-year-old little girl's
Yes.
being in the world with having this accident happened at school?
Yeah. No, at a friend's
Okay.
house.
Okay, but everyone probably knew about it at
Oh,
school.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we are in a very tender, delicate part of our life, point of growing. How did you navigate that, and what was your healing around it?
So it was a very interesting and hard time in my life at that time. And I went to a private school, a private Catholic school at the time, where I didn't feel like I fit in. I actually struggled academically. I was a CD student, second through eighth grade, and struggled. I struggled. And this only just added to that. And so, being healing and everybody knowing it for 2 weeks, I mean, obviously, you can't really speak well when your jaw's wired shut. And I'll tell you, it was the first actually was the second real major trauma and something that I had to handle for myself. And here's the thing, I started to understand you either get through something and it, and you find yourself on the other side, that strength and that grit, and we're going to get through this, or you fall apart. And as we all learn through our traumas and our challenges, we need to trust ourselves. And I think that incident really taught me, it was the first time at that level, like no one else could heal for me. No one else could go through speech therapy for me. Like I had to do this, and at a 12-year-old time. And so it was a really big moment for me to build myself instead of break, you know. And this isn't gonna break me. It was that mindset of like, this is not gonna break me, and I'm gonna come out stronger. So I did, and it was one of those like, I got this. The beginning of I can do hard things. And it's hard when you're in the fire of something and you're in the valley of something and you're in the storms and you just can't find your self trust. And I look back on my hard things in my young childhood, under 14, and there were a lot of challenges, but I'll tell you, those were the seeds of self trust. And if I can get my mind around it, I can get to the other side. And I was just determined not to have things break me at a very young age. I didn't have the language, that we do today, but I was like, this is not going to be the thing that's going to break me. So it was a moment, and I was like, I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to build myself from this, and I'm going to come back stronger. And it's not ironic that I make my living speaking. And that was a pretty big moment of me finding my voice again, and also not taking advantage of our voice. I say our voice is, I have a saying that there's a trifecta of greatness, and it's our voice, our power, and our money. Those three things, I challenge you to look at, how are you spending? Because we waste our voice, we waste our power, and we waste our money on things that don't matter to our vision and our values. And that's where I think a lot of people get spun out of life, is they're wasting their voice over here, they're wasting their money over here, they're wasting their power and time over here. But when you take inventory on those three things, and why I put the voice in there, I think it's one of the most powerful assets we have. And so I call it the trifecta of greatness. When you really understand how you want to use those three things, your life gets real intentional and really like on mission.
That is so beautiful. I love voice, power, and money, and really getting intentional with how you spend those and how you
Mhm,
waste those. That is so
mhm.
beautiful. Well, you've always been an influential voice inside of our community here at the Big Talk. And I'm just so grateful to be able to learn more about you in this moment. That is such an incredible story. And you did hint that there was one other situation that gave you the grit and the discipline and the direction towards knowing the power of your mind. Are you able to share that with our listeners today?
Sure, sure. It was inside of a dream of moving to New York City. So I was born and raised third generation here in Phoenix, Arizona. And at 21, I had wanted to live in New York City my whole life. And at 21, I said, this is the time. I am selling everything in my little apartment, and I'm taking my $2,000 and I'm moving to New York City. And it was a huge dream at 21. And at 24, I started my own PR and marketing agency, which then got bought from a tech company. And right at that time, at 27, I thought, man, I was living the life. I just won like my first business award. I had 3 employees. I was about to sell my first business, and life was so good. And then I had a minor stroke, and it put me on my knees. It was super scary. First of all, I was very lucky to be, you probably know this, you don't have a lot of friends in New York City that have cars. I only had one friend at the time that had a car because we all take taxis and subways. I was with him that night and actually at the theater. And I was in theater, Broadway theater, film and TV. And I happened to be at the theater with him that night. He had a car, got me right to the ER. And it was incredibly scary there for a couple days. And anybody that has gone through anything like that, there could be a range of things that could happen. There's a lot of people that don't come out of that and can speak again, or they lose their left side, numbness and paralyzing. So I, thank God, only had numbness for about 2 weeks on my left side, but I had 6 months of speech therapy. And I'll tell you, it was a time, I was 27, 28 years old. Like I said, just sold my company. And I felt like this high, like I finally made it. This is such a good time. And I think a lot of us do that is we're in a high, we're in a top of a mountain moment. And then boom, something happens. And again, that mindset that I have been working on my whole life of like, this is not going to break me. But I'll tell you the hard thing about that. When you're a business owner, I wasn't a speaker at the time, but a business owner, and your voice is really important to leading a team and leading companies. And I just thought this might be the end of my communication. I'm in marketing and PR. I'm in communication. I have to communicate stories all the time. And it just might be the end of that because my speaking was not like coming back. And it was a real doubtful time, but I kept working at it and I kept working at it. And I still do. And every time I step onto a stage, let me tell you, my smallness, we have smallness and we have greatness mindset. My smallness is like, oh, remember the 40 words you still can't pronunciate, right? I have a whole list of words I still cannot say correctly. And here's the thing, it's okay. I avoid them. But that smallness wants to keep me from the stages. It's like, oh, you're going to slip up and say something wrong. And it has been around the last 10 years as a speaker and says, no, you can't do this. Oh, you're going to mispronounce something. Oh, remember, you can't really say this and that. So it's always there to remind me and create that fear and that doubt. But that greatness, and you talk about this, like that mission, your big voice, your big stand, that's so much bigger than my smallness and my fear. And so I always say storms without God will break you. Storms with God will build you. And my faith is part of my journey of evolving and getting better. And here's the thing, as a speaker, you might say something wrong or you might say something in a wrong order or whatnot. We recover. It's fine. It's not the end of the day and the end of your chapter. So that's what I learned along the way. Go and do it anyways.
That's so beautiful. Storms with God, storms without God, because there's always storms. That's something you
Always.
can't avoid. And I love that there's how many words in your vocabulary? Thousands, and there's only 40 that
Mhm.
are slightly a struggle, and you avoid them. That is the perfect solution. Always looking on the bright side, always moving away from victim and into hero of your own life. That is something that I've always admired about you. You wrote a book called The Greatness Game.
Mm.
What about your personal stories have inspired that, and share a little bit with our listeners and our viewers about that process for you?
Well, after I actually sold that company in and around I stayed on as a consultant for about a year and a half, and then started this business. So this is about 22 years of uh, coaching and training entrepreneurs, and it has been a journey because I thought in the beginning, since I came from the world of PR and marketing, that I would stay in that kind of niche. But what I realized was there was another gift that I really do well and love coaching, which was systems. So then I added systems. So it's like marketing and sales and then systems were kind of my pillars of my coaching. I can solve those problems for any business. But what I realized about, as I got into year 9, year 10, and I started to really research successful people, and I'm like, what is the thing? What's the thing? Because it's not degrees. We all know there's tons of people that are very highly successful that don't have college, don't have degrees, right? It's not this magic pill, right? So it's not degrees. It's not the family came from. You can look at, again, lots of successful people who came from struggling families or whatnot. So what I found it was mindset, is the ability to overcome hard things on the daily. You find out an employee is embezzled from you. Is it going to break you? Are you going to rise? Are you going to overcome? Like, how are you going to respond to the daily fires, daily challenges in your business, in your life, right? So that was the thing. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's the thing. So I dove into about 5 years of research in mindset. What's the thing? How do I do this? And of course, it's a lot of psychology and a lot of like hard things. And this is what I became passionate about. How do I make it simple for the everyday person, for the person who's just starting on this journey, that's not done a lot of personal development or a lot of mindset work? And so that was, I wanted to incorporate mindset into my coaching, but I wanted to speak and write books for everyone so that they could really master their mindset and not have to work with a counselor, work with a coach. So that's where I was like, make a simple, small book just to activate, give them the concept between smallness and greatness, and give them some tools to start to master their mindset. So that was kind of the origin story. And, hundreds and hundreds of stages later, and thousands of clients later, I have this now greatness methodology that I've coached lots of people and helped them really master their greatness mindset. And you live and lead completely different when you're leading from greatness.
That's so beautiful. When you think about teaching your clients and speaking from big stages about leading from your greatness, what's the jump from small thinking to big thinking when it comes to your mindset and good to great?
The biggest thing is smallness is all about comfort. We all get addicted to the comfort zone. Comfort zone is our smallness, and it has one job: to help us survive. So it doesn't matter if it's um, giving you lie upon lie upon lie, as long as you agree with it and get back in the box of comfort. That's all it cares about. It doesn't care how it does it. So it will manipulate us, it will lie to us, which those lies we have all heard, right? You're not perfect. Why are you writing a book? You failed second grade. Why are you a keynote speaker? You are from the wrong family or the wrong color. How are you speaking now at the UN? Right? Like, it's just nasty, nasty. So, but its whole job is to feed us those lies, get our agreement, and get us back into comfort so we don't do it, and keep us away from anything risky, right? So when we understand the whole function of smallness, it's like a manipulative little 2-year-old trying to give us candy. We can go, no, stop that. You don't serve me for where I am going. Get in the back seat. You're not driving, right? So we can start to really put our smallness in its place. And that's that empowerment of like taking the wheel again, because it wants to take our wheel, right? And so that's the concept of awareness of how your smallness is playing you, to the piece of your agreement. Smallness has no power over us until we agree. So the second we go, oh yeah, I did fail that. I I am not enough to write a book. You're right. And we agree, and we're back in that comfort zone. So
Mhm.
that agreement is where we lose all of our power and we get right back, right? And then like in a year from now, 6 months from now, 2 years ago, we meet someone that inspires us to get out again. We're like, oh, we're going to try again. And so that, and then we have to save ourselves again, because then we get back in the comfort zone and save ourselves, save ourselves. What I encourage everybody to do is stand for yourself instead of save yourself.
Yeah.
Stand for yourself and start to listen to greatness, which is our highest potential, our highest self. So our greatness feeds us nothing but encouragement, courage, love, support. But somehow we're turning that down, right? We turn that down, we ignore that, and we like come in agreement that we failed second grade, or we don't have a good enough vocabulary to be a speaker, or whatever. Nasty lie. We come in agreement. So here's my coaching is come out of agreement. The agreements that we have in place with our smallness is keeping us in smallness, not getting on the stage, not changing the world and our missions, etc. Take your agreement back. Come out of agreement. But here's where the psychology is. Our psychology has to be in agreement with something. This
Mhm.
is super important. We're taking our agreement back, but you immediately have to put your agreement in something. And so we want to have new greatness games. That's where that title comes from. New greatness games to now agree with. So when we're in agreement with our greatness affirmations, I'm becoming a great speaker. I have a huge mission. I'm going to be a beautiful, powerful mother, like whatever your things are. Be in agreement with your greatness games every single day. And what's going to happen is that becomes the addiction. That
Mhm.
becomes the movement. That becomes the mastery. And all of a sudden, you're doing epic, epic things you never thought you would do. But here's the thing, your old version of you could never do epic things because it's in agreement with smallness. As soon as you come out and you start to agree with your greatness games, you play whole different games and you start winning whole different great games. So that's the language. You and I really agree, like language is everything. Words, I love, there's so many times through your program where you would take a word out or you would add a word. Words matter. Words create our world. And in my method, I mean, just what I explained, that's the short version of it.
Mhm.
It is so important to keep it simple and not overcomplicate and get all psychology and really
Heavy.
jargony, right? Keep it simple. Come out of agreement every day that smallness is feeding you. You can't get on that stage. You can't apply for that TED Talk. You can't start a business. You can't be a world changer. I mean, it's just nasty what it does to us, right?
There's I love everything that you're saying, and there's also something that I want to ask you about, Dina, because you're talking about every day you can play the greatness game, connecting to your mindset, being able to handle all the things on the daily, coming out of the agreement, having awareness. And I'm wondering if curiosity plays into this as well for you, because you are a very seasoned speaker and
Mhm.
you came into the Big Talk Academy. What's that all about?
So, first of all, I have a commitment to always be a student, always
That,
learn.
yep.
Al I've had a speaker coach or been in a speaker program for the last 6 years. It always elevates me, always. And if you think you're baked and you're good and you're like, "Oh, I don't need to learn anything," I think you're missing out. So I think one of the reasons why I am always booked as a speaker, always booked as a coach, like this is 22nd year of coaching and 10th year of speaking, and I'm busier than ever. And I think it goes back to always be learning,
Yeah.
So first and foremost, learn and learn from other people's techniques. You're different from every other speaker coach, I've ever had. So everybody brings such gold and their own wisdom and their own take on things that I think are important that you're like, oh, I've never thought of it that way. Right. So that's one. And then
Let me
two,
just also touch
yeah,
on the fact that you're speaking to the craft of this, which is what
yeah,
I love.
yeah.
Okay.
It
Go
is a
ahead, move on to 2.
and I don't think a lot of people understand, like, it's a business and it takes systems and tools and checklists. And I mean, it's all the things, right? If you want to do it well and get
If
paid well,
if if you wanna be great.
if you want to be great, if you want to hang out in like mediocre free speeches around your town, listen, that's going to give you visibility in your town. There's goodness in that, right? That's just not the game we're talking about. That's not, there's not the game we're talking about. So, but number 2 is, I have to remember that
I interrupted you.
it's okay. It's okay. So being a student and TED Talk. That's why. So as a speaker, I have definitely elevated my first few years. Definitely did a lot of free, low cost things. Then started getting paid more, bigger stages, bigger conferences, CEO conferences. What's interesting as a speaker is you could get paid. I just got paid equal to keynote speaker at a CEO conference in front of 600 CEOs, same payment to speak and facilitate at a 20-person high level retreat, right? So sometimes it's not even audience, it's value and how much, right? How much value you're bringing and all of that. So there's such beautiful opportunities in speaking that I could never have experienced if I wasn't a speaker. But 2, where I am in my own journey is what's next for me as a TED Talk. So we're talking about a realm I've never been in. And TED is a whole different animal than I'm used to, 45-minute keynotes and hour and a half breakout sessions and intimate retreats, and just very, very different than a 10 or 12-minute TED Talk. So for me, that was kind of the driving force of being in your class, is just really getting more refined and really working on that talk specifically, because that's a whole new animal for me again.
Amazing. Yeah, those short talks are really the new thing. 8 to 10-minute speeches.
Yep.
Really, really cool. I love all of this, and I want to touch on the Girls Rule Foundation before we move into Fast Talk. Can you give a little bit of what that's about for our audience today, Dena?
Sure. So one of my missions, purpose, calling is advancing, empowering girls in the world. And so me and 3 other colleagues started the Girls Rule Foundation 14 years ago. And we have empowerment and leadership programs for teen girls, middle school and high school girls. It came out of my calling to work with girls, but I then really learned how much girls are struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and post COVID. And you enter, when we created this, girls did not own phones. There was no cell phones with 10-year-olds or 13-year-olds. So you enter this whole new era where now 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds have their internet and access to the world at their hand, but also you have post COVID, which these kids got, very, very impacted by COVID and being online, and that social and emotional element of not being at school for a year or two, in some cases. So anyway, we do incredible work. We have an after school program called Dream Lab. Any school in the country can buy that right off of our website. It's based in our 12 leadership principles. An incredible, what you would really appreciate that. It's not intentional. We're not making them speakers, but they get empowered in their voice, because it's something very, very close to me, is people are empowered in their voice because it's one of their 3 assets, right? So it's very laced with a lot of practicing being in their voice, sharing their dreams on a weekly basis, leadership principles. And then at the end of the program, they do a community service project as a team. So very beautiful, powerful leadership program. And then we have a summer camp here in Arizona. We have girls from around the country that fly in for that week-long summer camp. So Doing great work, trying to transform and elevate and empower our girls.
That's so awesome. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being such an influential voice, Dena.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you ready for some fast talk?
Oh gosh. Absolutely. Bring it
All
on.
right. What's your favorite book?
Oh, uh, oh, it's not so fast. Dream Big, Bob Goff.
Perfect.
Yes.
Love golf. Amazing. Who's your favorite speaker and why?
Uh, Sekou Andrews. When I saw him at a conference, immediately I just said he's my favorite speaker on the planet, and I still tell him to this day. He became my first speaker coach after I saw him on stage. He's, I think, just beyond amazing. Sekou Andrews.
Awesome. How do you memorize?
Mm. How do I memorize? I memorize one slide, one slide at a time, the points for that slide at a time. I do love, one of the biggest things that I got from your class was some of your techniques of how to memorize. So I took on some of those, but I do it one slide at a time and just practice
Yeah,
every day until I master it,
repetition.
and then I move to the next one.
Perfect. Great advice. What do you do the day before you speak?
So the day before I speak is really mindset, right? I have the speech down, I have my outfit down. I do two things specifically. One, centering my mindset in who I need to be and the whole point of that, just really grounding myself in the intention. But the
Mm.
second thing is that's where I start to really understand the audience. Who am I speaking to and the impact I want to have on them? So who they are and who I need to be. So that reckoning and that grounding in that, because I think it's really important as a speaker we deeply understand who we're speaking to, especially when we're on a live stage.
Absolutely. And for everyone who's listening and watching, this is another perfect example and answer to someone who is a great speaker, not just a good speaker. And
Mm.
then finally, Dena, what podcast are you currently obsessed with?
Oh, geez. Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. I actually love, I love everything greatness. So it is my word, not by accident. I live and breathe it. He has so many great guests and just dive. I like going deep. A lot of podcasts kind of stay on surface, so that's the one that I'm obsessed with.
Amazing. We are going to put all of this in the show notes so that you can find all of these resources. And it has been such a pleasure to have you as a featured guest today. Where
Thank you.
can our listeners get in touch with you? And I think you have a special offer for them.
Absolutely. So if you go to amazinggreatness.com, there's some really well thought out free downloads there that will completely help you live and lead from your greatness, mind, body, and spirit. Elevate your game in greatness. So amazinggreatness.com. And then everything for me, my book and services are at denapatton.com. Super simple.
Thank you so much, Dena. I really appreciate you being here. For all of you who are listening, thank you for dropping in with us today. If you loved this podcast, be sure to share it with your friends and rate and review. And if you're listening and watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get access to our latest videos and recordings. And it means so much that you spend time with us here. If you want to reach out to Dena, be sure to do that. We'll put all of her contact information in the show notes. And again, everyone, remember your voice matters. Thank you, everybody. Big love. Mwah.